Did you know that 60% of American adults watch Christmas movies as part of their holiday traditions? And if you're British, 72% of all adults watch Christmas movies during the holiday season. And yet, sadly, these films could be affecting your longevity and your mental health. Hi, I'm Gail Jervis, and welcome to Life After 65. As an avid reader and researcher, I've made it my mission to explore all the ways that my husband and I can live healthier, happier, and more fulfilling lives as we learn to redefine aging. I started this channel to share what I'm learning with anyone else who has the same goal. Now, I hated to introduce this week's episode right for Christmas, like a negative topic of be careful what movies you watch. I mean, after all, many of you enjoy reliving cherished Christmas memories by watching a Christmas film. You might even enjoy watching your Christmas films with your adult children or even your grandchildren. Many of us enjoy the heartwarming and positive themes of Christmas movies. I mean, they uplift our spirits. These films can even provide a welcome distraction from everyday stresses. It might even be just one activity that you enjoy to put you in that festive Christmas spirit. And therefore you say, what's wrong? What's wrong with watching these movies? Well, it is shocking how many ageist stereotypes occur in these films. And if you have watched one of my other earlier episodes called Extend Your Life by 7.5 years, you'll know that research indicates that we can lose, at least 7.5 years by absorbing all the ageist beliefs that occur in books and films. And if you haven't watched it, I'll leave a link after this episode for you to watch. Now, let's take a look at 11 ageist stereotypes that we might see while we're eating our popcorn and just sitting back to enjoy a popular Christmas film. Now, number one, you might see a grumpy and heartless old person. Ebenezer, for example, A Christmas Carol. Ebenezer Scrooge. Now, he's the quintessential grumpy miser. He's a wealthy, older man who is initially portrayed as greedy and unkind. Now, fortunately, though, he does undergo a transformation through his visits from the spirits of Christmas. So this can reinforce the stereotype that aging, can lead to negativity and greed. But at least there was a redemption arc. It was meant to, at least it counteracted that. So I was torn as to whether I should even mention this. But he did start out as a grumpy old man. I mean, I was just recently in a conversation with someone who said, I'm trying to tell my husband he's got to quit, grumping around or he's going to be a grumpy old man. There's a stereotype here. Anyways, Scrooge, 1988, the modern retelling of A Christmas Carol. Now, the character Lou Hayward, Frank Cross's old boss, guess how old the old boss is portrayed. He's not only just an old cranky guy, he's now portrayed as a decaying, corpse-like ghost, emphasizing what? Oh my gosh, who wants to get old? And they get old and decrepit and they almost look like death itself. 2004, Christmas with the Cranks. The character of Walt Scheel, the Cranks' older neighborhood. Guess how he's depicted? Yep, he's a grumpy and cantankerous old guy. His portrayal just reinforces the stereotype of older individuals. Oh my goodness, they get so grouchy. They're just so inflexible. In 1946, It's a Wonderful Life. Now, this is a classic, and I've got to say that please don't be discouraged from watching this. I've got something to say about it a little bit later. But at the same time, Mr. Potter is showing or displayed as a greedy, heartless old man, so that he perpetuates the stereotype of the older individual as a villain. And his character lacks the nuance given to other characters. I mean, he's just reduced to that one role. At least in A Christmas Carol, the old guy at least becomes a nicer person. So, number two, incompetent stereotype. These films use comedic elements to portray older characters as incompetent, reinforcing stereotypes about their abilities and their effectiveness. For example, 2003 movie Elf. Santa Claus is depicted as a lovable, but oh my goodness, he's somewhat a bumbling, incompetent older man. He needs the help of what? Younger, more energetic characters to get things done. What does this portrayal do? It just reinforces the stereotype. Older people, oh, they're just not as capable. Yeah, they're kind of dependent on younger individuals for that assistance. However, I was torn about classifying this movie as ageist because the character Alf starred Bob Newhart. And guess how old Bob Newhart was? He was 79 at the time. So you could decide. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, 1989. In this comedy, the older characters Aunt Bethany and Uncle Louis, they're depicted with various flaws and comedic incompetencies. For example, Uncle Louis, he's shown as having a series of mishaps, including setting the Christmas tree on fire. What does that contribute? Of course, funny, ha ha, but it plays into the stereotype of older people being less capable. That's what made it funny. Or Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, 1992. In this sequel, older characters such as the hotel staff and other adults, they're often depicted as clueless or ineffective in their roles. For example, Mr. Hector, he's the concierge. He's portrayed as overly suspicious, but bumbling. His incompetence is highlighted when he actually fails to properly verify Kevin's story about his father, which of course led to a series of other comedic misunderstandings. All good. And yet, his inability to handle the situation professionally adds to the humor, but it also reinforces again this older guy is just not very effective. And then there's the desk clerk, Mrs. Stone. She's portrayed as somewhat clueless. Oh my goodness, she's easily flustered. In one scene, she checks Kevin into the hotel and she just doesn't get around to verifying his identity or his credit card details. She just seems to accept his story at face value. What? I mean, this lack of due diligence contributed to the comedic plot, but she was showcased as being incompetent. Now, number 3, a third type of stereotype. Lack of central roles. Okay, that's not even a stereotype. This is what's happening. Christmas movies particularly focus on young men and women, particularly if it's a romantic Christmas film. And they put the older characters to the background. They deny them central roles that highlight their stories and experiences. Once again, I'll use Home Alone as an example, the 1990. I do know that the primary focus is on Kevin McAllister and even his immediate family. And there's a brief depiction of his grandparents. That's about it. They are shown as part of the large family gathering, but they don't have any significant roles beyond being that nurturing and supportive elder. The Grinch, 2018. Oh my goodness, the animated adaptation of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Now, of course, it focused on the Grinch and his dog Max. And the residents of Whoville, what? The residents of New Whoville don't seem to have any older characters. And then you have young Cindy Lou Who. Once again, there's an emphasis on younger characters and fantastical beings with no significant older human characters playing a central role. Now you're going to say, well, you know what, this is a kids movie, so of course it'll be about kids. Why is that? Why should these kids watch shows that only center on them? And if there's an occasional older person, they are stuck into being a cranky or incompetent or ineffective older person. Home Alone 3, 1997. Okay, this is a sequel. And it follows a young boy named Alex who defends his home from a group of international thieves. The older characters present, such as Alex's parents, once again, minor roles in the storyline. So pay attention to how many movies you watch that don't even represent older adults, let alone put them in a stereotype role. But number 4, stereotypical grandparent roles. Oh my goodness, this is particularly popular in Christmas films. They portray grandparents in that nurturing and supportive role, but you don't actually get to know them. They have no personal stories, no interests, no complexities, no depth of character. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, 1989. The grandparents in this film are portrayed primarily as what? Oh, doting and nurturing figures. Their characters don't delve into any individual lives, any personal stories. The grandparents arrive to spend Christmas with the family. They offer their support during the holiday season. Is that so wrong? No. Most of us want to be the nurturing, kind, supportive grandparent, but that's not the only role we have. 1990 Home Alone. I know I keep bringing up Home Alone because it's such a popular Christmas show that one station plays Home Alone every day over the Christmas season. But again, there's a brief depiction of Kevin's grandparents. They're shown as part of a large family gathering. Nothing significant, nothing nurturing, nothing supportive, except, well, I shouldn't say that. They are being nurturing and supportive in their small, tiny little role. There's nothing wrong with that role, is there? But is that the only thing is who we are? Is a grandparent who wants to be nurturing and supportive to our families? That's one part of us. But the problem is that the older person role is just limited only to that nurturing grandparent, rather than being given opportunity to reveal their own personal stories. But we have to rewrite some Christmas films in order so that they could play that role. And number 5, ageist humor. Many Christmas movies use ageist humor, making jokes at the expense of older characters' physical abilities and memory. What? Reinforcing again those negative stereotypes, let alone the fact that is that even being respectful if a person really is having memory problems? 1989, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. The film features several jokes at the expense of the older characters. Clark's Aunt Bethany and Uncle Lewis particularly. Aunt Bethany, she's depicted as, I'm just so forgetful and confused. Okay, it adds comedic effect, although I'm kind of wondering if it really does. But anyways, it reinforces stereotypes about older adults' cognitive decline. And Santa Claus 2, 2002. In this sequel, there are several jokes about what? Even the elves are aging. Okay, that's great, they're aging. But then how are they portrayed? Well, characters like Bernard and other older elves, they're portrayed as forgetful or physically limited. Okay, they think it contributes to humor by reinforcing negative stereotypes about aging. And number 6, there's depictions of frailty. Older characters are sometimes shown as frail or in need of assistance. What does that perpetuate? We're not all frail just because we get older. There's a misconception that aging obviously leads to significant physical or mental decline. Home Alone 1990. I know I brought it up again, but the same thing. There's an old man Marley. He's misunderstood by the neighborhood kids, including even the main character, Kevin. Now, later his character is revealed to be kind and strong, but our initial impression, frail old man who's just isolated from everybody else. His character reinforces the stereotype of an older person being creepy and isolated. Polar Express, 2004. Santa Claus, magical and wise. What? He's portrayed even with an air of physical frailty, requiring the help of his elves and the young protagonist to fulfill his duties. His character often reflects the stereotype of an older, slower-moving figure in need of assistance. 2004, Christmas with the Cranks. The character Walt Scheel is portrayed as an older man, and he's somewhat frail, somewhat in need of assistance, particularly, his health, his mobility. His interactions often emphasize his physical limitations. Scrooge, 1988, modern retelling of A Christmas Carol. Character of Lou Hayward, Frank Cross's old boss, is portrayed, as I think I mentioned this before, but think of it as a decaying, corpse-like ghost, and it emphasizes the grotesque vision of aging and death. Number 7, stereotypes. Marginalized romantic storylines, romantic subplots. Oh my goodness, there's always some romance, it seems like, in Christmas films. And they're typically reserved for younger men and women. Older adults, they're rarely depicted as having romantic or intimate relationships. They just marginalize their experiences. I mean, there's a few exceptions. I'm going to share a few of those later. And maybe there's even more that I haven't come across. I hope so. Number 8, invisible or absent older characters. Some Christmas movies just lack older characters entirely, contributing to their invisibility in media and failing to represent the reality of that we exist and that we actually are a huge number of people that should be noticed. The Grinch, 2018. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. All right. Well, yes, we focus on the Grinch. Yes, we focus on the dog Max. Yes, we focus on the residents of Whoville. But again, it just almost eliminates older people. We just see younger characters. Nothing, no older characters playing a central role. That is not role modeling for younger people who older people are. Home Alone 3, 1997, I mean, mentioned before, a boy named Alex defends his home from a group of international thieves. Now, unlike the original Home Alone, this film does not even feature any older characters. The whole focus is on the younger protagonist and the antagonist. I shouldn't say that. Alex's parents play just a tiny, tiny little role in the storyline. In 1993, The Nightmare Before Christmas, an animated film, focuses on Jack Skellington, the pumpkin king of Halloween Town who discovers Christmas Town and decides to take over the holiday. Well, again, the primary characters are mostly, maybe younger adults, fantastical creatures, but no significant older human characters are involved in this very popular storyline. And number 9, simplistic wisdom archetype. Older characters are often portrayed as wise mentors whose sole purpose is to guide younger characters, ignoring the fact that this wise mentor might have some personality, might have some other interests of his own, might be even on their own adventure or learning adventure. It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. Do you recognize? The actor Henry Travers played the role of Clarence Oddbody, and he was portrayed as an angel. And he served as a mentor to George Bailey, or otherwise known as James Stewart, the actor, guiding George through a series of revelations about his life and its impact on others, so that this older person is a guiding presence to help George find renewed purpose. However, Clarence's role as a mentor is actually central to the film's message of personal impact and redemption. So therefore, if I have to fall under any of those stereotypes, I'd rather be the wise mentor. A Christmas Carol, 1951. 3 ghosts in this adaptation of Charles Dickens' novella serve as mentors to Ebenezer Scrooge, and each ghost provides Scrooge with insights and lessons about his past, about his present, about his future, with a focus on guiding him toward a more compassionate life. The ghosts in this show function as wise mentors who impart moral lessons to help Scrooge's transformation. Now, for some reason, I wanted to be aware of this stereotype, but I don't feel as disturbed when films at least depict older people as wise and able to offer something to younger people, because that's sure an improvement from all of the other stereotypes that I have been listing so far. And number 10, patronizing attitude. Younger characters in Christmas movies sometimes exhibit patronizing attitudes toward those older characters. Oh, they're a bit of a burden, but I love them. Or they're people who need to be managed or cared for. Christmas with the Cranks, 2004, in this film. The Cranks are portrayed as being frustrated with the parents' visit, and they view them as an inconvenience while they're trying to skip Christmas. The younger characters' attitudes toward the older characters, dismissive, managing, how about get rid of them, reflecting that, they're kind of burdensome, they're kind of in our way right now. I mean, kind of have an honest conversation with these people saying, you know what, just for this year we decided to skip it because we're just not in the Christmas spirit. What kind of response would the grandparents say? Maybe they'd get more support than they realize. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. In the sequel, well, Kevin eventually befriends Old Man Marley. I mean, once I said before, his initial portrayal is filled with stereotypes. Not only is he possibly cranky, but he's a burden. He's a frightening figure due to his age, and you're not too sure if you want to hang out with him. And the other young characters in the film, oh my goodness, they view him with suspicion or just avoidance. The Family Stone, 2005. In this film, Sybil Stone, the elderly matriarch, is often treated with how? With respect? No, with condescension, and as a burden by her children. Oh my goodness, particularly when her health issues start complicating the family dynamics. The young characters often act with a patronizing attitude towards her needs and concerns. Number 11, the stereotype. Depictions of older people being technologically inept. They don't know how to understand or use any of the modern technology. Oh boy, that's a great stereotype. Oh my goodness, those older people, they just don't know how to work technology. They're not very adaptable. Maybe they're not that intelligent either. 1994, the Santa Claus. Well, Santa Claus is a magical figure. The film often depicts him as struggling with modern technology and adapting to the responsibilities of being Santa, showcasing him as a kind of comedic, incompetent person. Not sure if I can deal with those contemporary issues. Elf, 2003, the character Papa Elf, played by Bob Newhart, is depicted as technologically inept, out of touch with those modern advancements. While the humor is lighthearted, it still plays into the stereotype of older adults struggling with technology. Four Christmases, 2008. The film features several older characters, such as the protagonist's parents and grandparents. Oh, the grandparents, my goodness. They are depicted as out of touch, eccentric, a little overbearing. These portrayals rely on and reinforce stereotypes about older people being difficult and out of step with modern life. If you're enjoying this episode, please subscribe to this channel and click on the notify button so that you'll be informed when there is a new episode. Also, if you've decided to subscribe to this channel, please indicate in the comments below so that I can thank you. I'm very grateful. Now, are there any films that don't have, I shouldn't say films, are there any Christmas films that don't have as many ageist stereotypes? Well, I'm hoping my list is very incomplete, but here's a few that I have found. The Holiday. I mentioned The Holiday before, and I was saying that it's still a good movie. Well, the primary romance involves younger characters. Arthur Abbott, who's a retired screenwriter, an older man, develops a sweet and supportive relationship with the younger Iris. Their bond's not romantic, but it's characterized by deep affection, mutual admiration. Arthur's memories of his late wife and the emotional support he receives from Iris adds kind of a tender, romantic element to his character. There are some ageist stereotypes in this movie. When we are introduced to one of the characters, Arthur Abbott does sometimes seem frail, somewhat pitiable, who needs help from the younger protagonist, Iris, but somehow it rebounds back to not being so much of a stereotype when the relationship between this older man and this younger woman grows, a growing respect for one another, a growing care for one another. So I would still put it in the list of it's okay. And actually, the older man, Arthur Abbott, the star was Eli Wallach, and he was 91 years old at the time. Well, that's a pretty positive message about aging, don't you think? He's still acting. Love Actually, 2003, Heron and Karen's storyline explores the complexities of a long-term marriage. It involves infidelity, but the subplot, it develops into themes of forgiveness, reconciliation, and enduring love. And the relationship with its ups and downs, well, it provides a more mature and realistic portrayal of romance among older characters. Or The Christmas Chronicles, 2018. The film ends with a romantic scene featuring Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. It highlights their loving and supportive relationship and their playful banter and obvious affection for each other. Well, it adds a charming and romantic element to their characters. It depicts a stable and enduring love. Miracle on 34th Street, the classic, 1947. The character Kris Kringle is portrayed as a wise and kind and capable old man, and he embodies the spirit of Christmas. In another more recent Miracle on 34th Street, 1994, the character was actually played by Richard Attenborough, the character. And he was actually 70 years old at the time. I like those little pieces of information. 70-year-old, well capable, and portraying a positive aging role. 1947, The Bishop's Wife. This film features Professor Wuthridge. And he's an older character, but he's portrayed with depth and respect, and he contributes significantly to the story. Or number 5, 2013, The Best Man Holiday. Well, this film includes older characters, and they're portrayed as vibrant, complex individuals with ongoing personal and professional lives. They avoid those darn stereotypes. It's wonderful. And number 6, It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. Hey, it's a classic. I've already mentioned it before. I've mentioned how it's a wise trope that's being used. But I suspect the depiction of a wise older man to most of us isn't that upsetting. But we still need to be aware that it can be a stereotype. And as I mentioned earlier, there are many Christmas films that don't even include older characters. And so I thought I would add to this list a few more older actors who starred in Christmas films. I know I've mentioned a couple, but there's also The Christmas Choir by Rhea Perlman. Now, she was a supporting actress. She's the woman that was in Cheers. You know, she played a strong supporting role there. Okay, she played a great role in this film. She didn't fit any of the stereotypes. And she actually was a dynamic character. She changed a little bit of her opinions throughout the movie. Or The Most Wonderful Time of the Year, 2008. Many of us remember this older actor in the TV series Happy Days. Henry Winkler, he was the Fonz. He was 62 years old when this film was produced, and it's well received, the film. And then there's The Family Christmas Gift, 2019. Now, I haven't seen this film, but I'm going to seek it out. It stars Patti LaBelle, and she was 75 years old when this film was produced. Or you could watch Christmas at Dollywood, filmed in 2019, which of course stars Dolly Parton, and she was 73 years old when this film was produced. I mean, if you think of other Christmas films that don't depict older characters in ageist stereotypes, or particular characters that were already old when they were in that movie, add them in the comments below. You know, some of you might just be rolling your eyes thinking, oh my goodness, she's just too critical of Christmas films. After all, they're usually just light-hearted entertainment. I might have felt that way until I read Becca Levy's research findings in her book, Breaking the Age Code. I mean, I was literally shocked to learn how all the age beliefs that we accumulated since we were children, into young adulthood, into older adulthood, into now our older age, all those beliefs, all those portrayals, all those stereotypes, or even all the absence of those stories about us, they're literally stealing our health and our longevity. It's crucial that we raise our awareness of ageist stereotypes in order to make sure we don't absorb them as truth ourselves and also in our loved ones. Therefore, keep watching your favorite Christmas films, but be aware of those ageist stereotypes. And whenever you watch a film with family members, introduce them. Say, hey, notice how that old guy is being portrayed, or that older woman? So that they too don't fall into the trap of absorbing and believing these beliefs, which can inadvertently affect their mental well-being and their longevity. I'd like to conclude this episode with a quote from the film Scrooged. It's Christmas Eve. It's the one night of the year when we all act a little nicer. We smile a little easier. We cheer a little more. For a couple of hours out of the whole year, we are the people that we always hoped we would be. By the way, if you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button right after this episode. And also, you might enjoy watching Extend Your Life by 7.5 Years. It should be showing up on your screen to enjoy.